Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I've got Doug Krieger and Dean McGriff on again today. These guys have been teaching prophecy for many years, and if you've been listening, you've been hearing them for many days now on the Prophecy Club. But today's topic, we want to talk about the rapture. Is it pre? Is it mid? Is it pre-wrath? Or is it post? Doug and Dean, what do you think?
Let me take kind of a different approach. One of the problems with British Israelism and the replacement theology and everything is that, they say Israel's through, it lost its promises and so forth. We don't agree with that. We think that, no, God is still obviously involved in the nation of Israel. The problem with the pre-tribulation rapture, more than anything, is that I could care less when it occurs, but the biggest problem with it is the dispensationalists say, well, the church dispensation is over and Israel is back on the table and now the church is gone. And I look at it and I say, God, why would you remove your testimony at the most important hour? And to us, it's all about testimony and the importance of the church being there to testify, because if God is going to judge the world, he can only judge the world based upon the testimony of two witnesses. You have to establish guilt by the testimony of two witnesses. I can't say, hey, I saw Doug rob, $500 out of the cash register. No, you have to have two people to prove that Doug did that. And in the same way, God has his peoples, and they're his workmanship. Israel, in a physical sense, is his workmanship. He's been working on these guys for 4,000 years. And we are his workmanship, and he's been working on us for 2,000 years. So why on earth would he want to remove us? So I was talking to the brother. As a matter of fact, he was a co-author of our book, and I said, Doug, to me it's a matter of testimony. So I'm not post-trib necessarily. I'm pro-testimony. And what are you? Are you anti-testimony? And he looked at me and he said, oh, no, not anti-testimony. Well, to say that the church is gone means that you've removed that testimony, and this, to me, is the most critical time, and I even had a vision on our drive there. I said, the church represents God's A-team. I mean, this is the people that he died for, that he gave his life for. He's been working on them. He's been transforming their lives. He's been day after day after day after day. And when you're saved, you are a baby, and when you've been a Christian for 30 or 40 years, you still feel rather immature, But God, in his mercy, is working on us. And so to think that he would just all of a sudden take that out, and then all of a sudden some tribulation saints that are, Superman type people are going to rise up out of nowhere without any experience of the Lord, without knowing the Word, without knowing the Lord, without walking with him a day, to me is kind of crazy. So to me, this is how I reframe the argument, kind of like they did with the pro-life thing. Not pro-choice. Let's say we're pro-life, you're pro-death.
And we're not anti-abortion, we're pro-life.
Yeah. And so, in the same way with this whole issue of the rapture, to us, it's a matter of testimony, because if you look in Revelation, that's what the church is doing during that time. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of the testimony, and they loved not their lives even unto death. I just don't see how God, for him to remove his testimony from the earth at the time when saints down through the ages have been giving their lives for the Lord. They're doing that in Uganda right now. They're doing that all across Africa. They're doing that in China and Iran and the Middle East. North Korea. Saints are suffering and dying everywhere in the world, and they have been. And what makes us so special to think that we would escape? I mean, come on. That's the greatest privilege. And yet, the saints here in the Western world do not view that as a privilege at all. They just look at it, and they're terrified of the thought that might lose their
God would never do that.
They lose their split level house and their swimming pool and their 401ks, and they wouldn't be able to run off to Disney World for the weekend. To me, it's more changing the argument when we can go back into the scriptures, and I'm sure we will. But it's an issue of you don't take out Israel, nor do you take out the church. We both have to be there because God has a reason for us, and as a matter of fact, we're His people. We're His workmanship.
We're all brethren in Christ. We differ sternly, disagree with our dear brothers in the Lord that in point of fact we're going to have this little secret rapture, and there's a little branch of that says, well, only the real overcomers go. The Christians who haven't been overcoming, they get to stay.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay. I had somebody say, oh, well, if you think you're going to stay, then you stay. Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, if you think you might be staying, you're going to stay. Okay, but here's the problem. And I asked Dr. John Wolvert this. Again, I considered more than an acquaintance, a dear friend of mine. I love the prophetic scriptures. Okay, here is a question that will not go away. And that question is, then, who are the tribulation saints? Now, are they, in other words, are they the church or aren't they? If the church is not here, pre-tribulationalism, during the 70th week of Daniel, and God is working through a redeemed people, the Jews, 144,000 Jewish evangelists that rise up overnight, go out and start evangelizing the world, okay, and they're being brought into what? Well, sort of a redeemed community. Well, they're known as what then? Well, they're the tribulation. Are they the saints of the church? Or are they the tribulation saints? Who are these people? They're not Israel. Well, then, who are they? Well, they are not the church because she's gone. Okay, there are some major theological bondoogles that I'm looking at here. Okay, and here's the question. If you ask anyone, Stan, okay, let's say that you don't have any position, and then you hear this thing about, oh, we're going to rule and reign with Christ 1,000 years in a literal millennium, right? And you're a pre-trib person, and you're saying to yourself, yes, I'm going to rule and reign with Christ 1,000 years. I mean, the Jews are going to be down here. The Israelites are going to be doing this thing in the temple. You know, they're going to be the temple servants and all that. And we are, believe it or not, if you take these dispensationalists for what they say, we are in suspended animation, sort of like a Death Star hanging up there in the atmosphere. And that is the New Jerusalem. There she is. She's up there in suspended animation above the earth. She hasn't quite made it down all the way. But she's ruling and reigning with Christ 1,000 years, and I know that's the teaching. Now, if you turn to Revelation 20, okay, Stan, let's get our Bibles out and have everybody turn to Revelation 20. And that's where it talks about the 1,000-year rule and reign on of the millennium in Revelation chapter 20 and the first number of verses. But if you've never seen this before, this is a real major eye-opener, and I mean major, because what it says very clearly, and in verse 4 and verse 5, it says that there are people here who have been beheaded for their witness to Jesus and for the Word of God, who had not worshipped the beast, obviously this is during the tribulation, or his image, which is they've overcome political Babylon, they've overcome religious Babylon, his image, and had not received his mark. That has to do with commercial Babylon, because you can't buy or sell without the mark. So all tripartite Babylon they have overcome on their foreheads. Or
that tribulation.
Yeah, and that has to be during the tribulation, because you're talking about the beast, the mark, you're talking about the image. All that's happening during the 70th week of Daniel. Now, come on, folks. Okay, and they had, and guess what? And they, and they lived and reigned. Now, this doesn't sound like temple servants. They reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. I'm going to ask the question. you're going to reign and rule with Christ 1,000 years. Now, if you're within range of my voice and you're driving around in the Dallas area, and you plan on living and reigning with Christ 1,000 years because you're an evangelical Christian who believes in the pre-trib rapture, guess who is going to rule and reign with Christ 1,000 years? Have you lost your head yet? The question is, those that were beheaded in the tribulation are the ones who are going to rule and reign with Christ 1,000 years. The next verse talks about the resurrection and of the righteous. And blessed is he who partake. Who do you think is partaking in the first resurrection? Which, by the way, that word first there is the same word to the Ephesian church. You've left your best love, your first love. This has to do with quality. The resurrection we're talking about here is first in class. This is first, best, superior, the one and only. Now, don't you want to be in that resurrection? Well, if you are, you may have completely lost your head. But the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished. Okay? And this, what we're talking about, is the best resurrection. The other resurrection is for the unjust. And there's only one. There's only one resurrection, and that's also given in Daniel chapter 12. Okay? And the same principle is there. So if you're going to rule and reign with Christ 1,000 years, and you're talking about these tribulation saints who've lost their heads, but they've overcome the beast, they've overcome his image, and they've overcome the mark. Now, who are these? Hey, these are they in Revelation chapter 7, who are a great multitude that no man could number, that have come from every tribe, tongue, nation, and people. And guess who they are? They are them who have come out of great tribulation, and they've overcome. Now that's going out with a bang, not a little secret or, great escape number. So what Jesus did is, don't you want to embrace the testimony of Jesus, which is the spirit of prophecy? Well, guess what he did? He came riding into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, and he went right to the temple, and he threw those turkeys out of there, all the merchants, kicked them out, and then the next thing you know, he takes on the Pharisees. The next day, he takes on the Sadducees. He takes on the lawyers, especially the lawyers. He takes on all these guys, right? He takes on the Pharisees. He takes on the scribes. And he knew he set his face as a flint to Jerusalem, and he knew he had to give that testimony. Now, guess what? John was on the Isle of Patmos for what? The testimony of Jesus and for the Word of God. When you look at the two witnesses, and we can get into this, and I know I blow everybody's sockets on this, because even Israel in unbelief still constitutes two olive trees. And the two lampstands are, okay, the pre-trib people say, you never hear hiding or hair of the church from Revelation 4 on. When the doors open in heaven, that's it, we're in heaven. Well, guess what happens in Revelation 10? John shows up on the earth again, and guess what he has to do? He has to give a testimony to all tribes, tongues, nations, and peoples. And then right away it goes into the two witnesses. And who are they? Two olive trees, Israel. Two lampstands, the church. Hey, 7 lampstands in Revelation chapter 1, and 2 lampstands, because 2 is the number of witness. So you say, well, these are the 2 witnesses, these are the 2 prophets, and you look at it, and you must be looking at them cross-eyed, because last heard 2 and 2 equals 4. So either they're 2, but, well, there's an olive tree witness, that's what it means by 2, and then there is a lampstand witness, and that's what it means by 2, and 2 and 2 equals 4. So either we got 2 witnesses or we got 4. But they're 2 olive trees, and they're 2 lampstands, and they are told to give testimony. Now, if I'm going to court with you, brother, and we're on the same side, don't you think that our little testimony against so-and-so better be collaborated sufficiently enough? Because he doesn't want to hear the judge one story out of your side of the mouth and one story out of my side of the mouth. We better get our little act together in our testimonies so that when we stand before the judge of all the earth against that great city. We're the holy city. Oh, and by the way, the court of the Gentiles, they don't like the holy city. They plan on trampling asunder the holy city for 42 months. Just about the same time frame that you see in Revelation 13, where the beast is given authority for 42 months. And, hey, it sure sounds like the same time frame as far as I'm concerned. So it's the holy city versus the great city. And that's the way we see it.
Well, the other thing is that those aren't, Moses and Elijah sitting on a park bench. You could take those guys out with a bullet they had of each, but it's a war, a worldwide war against two people groups. So it's a worldwide conflagration. The beast makes war against the two witnesses. You don't make war against two guys on a park bench.
But they're X-Men, Dean.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're
okay,
X-Men.
so you guys see these as two groups of people, not two flesh and blood people.
Right, exactly. How could they be? It says the beast that comes out of the abyss, Revelation 11, 6 and 7, right in through there. He will make war against them and will overcome them and kill them. Oh, what? Wait a minute. Then you go on a little bit further, and you read that they're going to be lying in the street of the great city for 3 days. No, 3.5 days. What a peculiar little phrase, twice mentioned in Revelation 11. Why 3.5? Because that's the latter half of the 70th week. Last heard, every week I know has had 7 days. 3.5 is half of it. The other 3.5 days is the other half of the week. But they're going to lie in the street of the great city where our Lord was crucified. Oh, thanks to Chris White. Okay, bless his heart, dear brother in the Lord. He's resurrected an old Catholic doctrine which supposedly died in 70 A.D. What is that doctrine? That doctrine is that Babylon the Great, that great city, is Jerusalem. In other words, the Jews, they're the ones that crucified the Lord of glory. Therefore, they're going to get it in the end. I mean, Hitler loves this doctrine. But the fact of the matter is this. That city is allegorically called Sodom and Egypt. Now, Israel at one time was called Sodom because of her harlotries. But she was never called Egypt and Sodom, never together. So where was Jesus crucified? Outside the gate of the holy city, outside the gate of Jerusalem. So what we're saying here is this. We need to go to him outside the camp, outside the gate. Everything outside that gate is Babylon the Great, if you would. It's that great city. Now, dear John Wilbur tried to get away with this. He said that that great city in Revelation 11 is Jerusalem. But every other mention of the great city and Babylon is Babylon, maybe the EU, Baghdad revived, whatever, okay? So it is not referring to Jerusalem. But the Catholics have always referred to Jerusalem as Babylon the Great, but it was destroyed in 70 A.D. It's very preterist in its intention. But I'm saying that, Chris White's book, which is entitled Mystery Babylon - Jerusalem, which he claims all the descriptions fit today's Israel, which is up for judgment. Hey, Messiah is coming not to destroy Jerusalem, but to ransom and save Jerusalem. He's going to destroy Babylon, that great city. Is fallen, which we've talked about a two-stage a destruction of Babylon the Great, which one could be economic, the other one would be political. But the incredible thing here, brother, and getting back to the fact that we're talking about a pre-trib rapture, Dean hit it right on the head. We have been called to stand in the street of the great city and testify. By the way, Jesus, when he came into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, that was a half a day, he was crucified 3.5 days after his entry into Jerusalem. That's like the first 3.5 days of the 70th week. And then he rose on Easter Sunday morning. that is accurate, which is 3.5 days later. Interestingly enough, he was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, Jonah. But why did he stay an extra half a day before Mary saw him? Because he's fulfilling the 70th week. It's his testimony. We're going to bear the testimony of Jesus through giving his testimony in front of all the people. And it's going to cost us. And we're going to resurrect. And we are going to be resurrected on the final 7th day, just as Jesus was resurrected on the final 7th day. I bet you never heard of that one before.
I'd heard some new stuff there. And as long as I've been around this, I don't hear too much new stuff there. Okay, well, so you think the Antichrist is alive, and you think he's coming from America?
Yep. Greco-Roman man, heading it up.
Because he has to have a nation behind him. He's got armies. He's going out and conquering all over, everywhere, and so he's got to be ahead of a nation. He has to be ahead of an apostate Christian nation, not Islam, not Jewish, but it's apostate Christian. It's fallen Christian. It may have even been wonderful Christian at one time,
a golden cup,
but it's fallen now, and it's commercial empire. It's the commercial empire. It's the consumer nation, and so it just the shoe fits.
In fact, Dean, why are all these shipmasters and all these people who trade with her by sea and everything, I understand they're crying their heads off after she goes up in smoke because no one will buy their what?
Their goods.
There you go.
All their stuff, all their and their luxury items, all the luxury items, the BMWs, the Lexus, the Mercedes, all of these wonderful things that we're the world's market.
And so now nobody's going to buy their stuff. Well, that's got to be Israel, because nobody will buy her stuff anymore. Hey, you know, last year they were trying to boycott everything out of Israel, right? Now, that's not to say that when you read the Gog-Magog conflict that they're coming down for a spoil. Must be something there to come down for, right? And so they're going to come down upon the mountains of Israel. They're
for
coming
oil.
Down for a spoil. Yeah,
oil.
Take off the SP.
Oil.
You got it, brother. Yeah, oil. Okay. So what I'm looking at, events, Stan, are going to be moving like greased lightning. They are going to move a lot faster than we had any idea. And I've heard all kinds of things about these 10 kings. The last thing I heard was, did you know that there are 10 FEMA regions in the United States of America?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Have you heard about that one?
Oh, yeah. Well, they've divided the 7 continents up to 10 global regions, and then each global region has 10 sub-regions under that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I told somebody, said, well, who are the 3 kings that they rip out? And I said, that's that little region of FEMA down there in Texas. You can count on that one. And then probably up in Montana, that's another one. And then there's, somewhere in the Midwest, there's the Rocky Mountains, and you've just about got it. Those are the 3. On the other hand, some have said that the 3 kings that are ripped out as he comes up might have been England, France, and Spain, to manifest this younger horn.
Because if you look at the beast with the 10 toes of clay going out, there were 10 European nations that went out and colonized the world.
The 10 toes. Those toes are made for walking.
And the United States was colonized by France, Spain, and England. And all 3 of those, they weren't destroyed; they were just ripped out.
So there's lots of theories, but the fact of the matter is, because you keep bringing us down here to the fact that it's the leadership of the West, and we know that the evolution of the imperial president has been developing for at least, I would have to say, since maybe Teddy Roosevelt. When we really started to get our little empire from Spain, and we moved on from there. Of course, we've been into manifest destiny for quite a long time, bro. Now we got about 1,000 bases, military bases throughout the earth. We've got all kinds of things out there. We have a budget that Donald Rumsfeld, the day before 9/11, got up and said, we've just found out that we spent $2.3 $2.3 trillion
is lost in the Pentagon budget.
Yeah, and we have no idea where it is. We got to look into that one of these years. Well, the next day, isn't it interesting? 9/11. So we haven't been looking at whatever happened to that $2.3 trillion. Well, it's in there somewhere. Then you hear these little things. Well, we somehow lost $50 billion. Forget $50 billion. What's in the NSA budget? What's in these budgets?
You can imagine how much we've lost since then. We already lost hundreds of millions in Iraq alone.
Okay, well, unfortunately, time has run out for us again. Guys, I appreciate having you on for these 8 broadcasts. We'll absolutely, positively have to have you back again. Well, anyway, brothers and sisters, let me encourage you to get the DVDs from these guys because they are excellent. I think I don't see everything eye to eye, but okay, put that aside. All right, there's going to be things, I don't care who you listen to, that you see it differently. But what you do is, what can I learn from these people? And I think that they're a deep well. I think they have a lot of good stuff. The 2 DVD titles are The Final Babylon, America and the Coming Antichrist, and Prophetic Timelines. Both of them, normally $30, totaling $60, but you can get both of them right now for a gift of $30 or more by calling 785-266-1112. That's 785-266-1112. Or you can go to prophecyclub.com. prophecyclub.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless.
And whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required. If God has blessed you, and if this ministry has been a blessing to you, prayerfully consider joining the fight for souls by giving your financial support. We thank you and appreciate your faithfulness.
Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. Brothers and sisters, I have been doing the Prophecy Club for over 20 years. We've had about 150 speakers make about 300 different titles, all dealing with Bible prophecy. But may I say, I think that these 2 DVDs may be some of the most important DVDs to get if you want to understand what may be coming in the near future. The first one is talking about how America is the final Babylon. The second one is talking about timelines, how soon the tribulation may start, and they claim that the tribulation will start in 2018 and be all over by 2025. They have lots and lots of research to be able to say that. Get both of these DVDs, valued at $30 each, but now you can get both of them for a gift of just $30 to the Prophecy Club, 785-266-1112, or online at prophecyclub.com. End Time Babylon and Prophetic Timelines. In Doug Hamp's new DVD, The Injection of the Beast, in the last days, it will be as in the days of Noah. Angels were mixing their seed with humanity, and it's happening again. That's demons and humans having sexual relations, masquerading as aliens, are actually creating Nephilim hybrids for the body of the Antichrist. Then in The Fall Feast and Prophecy, he tells the story of how Jesus fulfilled the first 4 feasts at his first coming and how he will fulfill the next 3 in return on some future Rosh Hashanah. The Day of Atonement pictures the opening of the books and the judgment of those dead and alive. The Feast of Tabernacles pictures us receiving our mansions. Both DVDs valued at $60 for a gift of just $40 or more in the HAMP gift offer. Remember, the Prophecy Club continues because of your prayers and gifts of support, not the distribution of DVDs. At the burning bush, God promised to give Moses a land flowing with milk and honey. We believe the milk is natural gas and the honey is yellow-colored crude oil. There are 30 scriptures in the Bible which say in the last days massive amounts of oil will be discovered in Israel, and we believe we've been given the directive to use this prophesied oil and gas to fund worldwide soul winning. If you have questions about our vision, call 877-OIL-ISRAEL or 877-645-4772.